has a really funny way of putting us in pause sometimes. And there's a few things that I want to share with you on this live that will help you understand why this message is so critical and important. And it's going to start off first with a little short story, and I promise you it's one that I never expected to be telling. And I'm hoping that it's going to resonate with some of you because, well, guess what? We live it collectively on this planet and share all of her resources. So there's a pretty good likelihood that we're going to share similar experiences with each other. I want to ask you a question that is actually really relevant. What do you do when life throws a curveball at you? You could be going down your path, just doing your merry thing, but then something happens and you're thrown a curveball so big that you just can't ignore it anymore. That's exactly what happened to me. In this live video, I also want to discuss what are some of the signs that show up when you're off track. What are some simple steps that you can take to pull yourself from being on the edge? We're going to discuss what our contract is, what our soul contract is with suffering. And in the very end, I'm going to leave you with an anchor statement. This is an anchor statement that when I heard it, it really brought stability into my heart, my consciousness, and my awareness because this was what I really needed to hear. So, we've had moments in our lives where our best laid plans get derailed. And it doesn't always make a whole lot of sense because we're just in it. So maybe you're at a season in your life where you may be feeling a little exhausted. Maybe you're feeling physically unwell, or maybe you feel like your emotions or your thoughts are spinning a little out of control. And I'm going to break this down to you a little bit more because it's not just you, my sweet friend, that's dealing with this. This is a planetary thing. Now, a few weeks ago, actually, it was around the very beginning of May, I was just on the go, doing what I do, moving at 180 miles an hour, and really just going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. My body was giving me some signs. And as I was seeing these signs, it just wasn't clicking in my head that this was going to get into a much bigger snowball if we didn't actually pay attention. So I wasn't paying attention. And what happened was my body gave me a huge wake up call. I developed a triad or a series of symptoms that led to acute urticaria. And if you don't know what acute urticaria is, it's essentially like a generalized attack of hives. It is not fun. And these hives um, started from the very bottom of my feet and went all the way to the top of my head, affected my hands, my fingers, and it kept going for weeks. Now, these weren't just hives. They were a combination of what I would call past lessons, um, present circumstances, and a refusal on my part to pay attention because I was just too dang busy and I missed it. So these hives, this urticaria, it flared up really badly. And it flared up just as I was arriving in Las Vegas. The desert heat during this season, oh, let me tell you, this one morning, I was sitting outside with my husband, John, and I literally felt like I was going to explode out of my body. I felt deeply uncomfortable. And it took supreme self control not to scratch or itch. My emotions felt really raw, and I had this much room for peopling. And I was going to be attending a concert with 30,000 people. I felt really stretched and I realized, oh my God, this is like watching a scene from a really badly produced movie called Warrior of Light. This is like another episode of Warrior of Light training, and it's kicking my ass. The only thing I could do, honestly, was breathe. Breathe. And this is what I would do. I would just sit there, I would take a deep breath, and then I just go. That was the way I could handle it. And as all of this stuff was happening, I kept ignoring the messages. The messages that were coming from the record keepers and my soul council were very simple. Slow down. Be quiet. Be still. Listen. I was like, yeah, that's nice. I got things to do, guys. I got places to be. That's nice. I don't have time to slow down. I don't have time to be still. I can listen, but can you give it to me fast? Let me tell you. And I'm laughing at myself because I I kept putting everybody in front of me. I was on a trip with my husband, my best friends. It was her birthday, and we were there for a really, really big show, 35,000 people. And I wasn't about to throw a wrench in our very well laid plans. So I just kept taking the frustration and I kept stuffing it down. I kept taking it and I kept stuffing it down. I kept stuffing it down. I kept stuffing it down until I realized, oh my God, there's no more room to stuff it down. I just can't do this anymore. I literally hit my ceiling, but I still didn't stop. I came back from that trip. I dove right into coaching, dove right into sessions, dove right into teaching, dove right into readings. And it wasn't until this past Saturday that I hit my wall. And when I hit my wall, all I could really do was stop. That's really all I could do. I reached my limit. I literally couldn't move forward. I felt physically debilitated, emotionally drained, and just in pain and overwhelmed. This is not my normal. Let me just tell you, friends, this is not my normal. The reason why I go 180 miles per hour is I can. I move at light speed. So when the light turns from green to red, it forced me to stop. And that's when I turned to a book that one of my clients suggested to me called No Mud, No Lotus by Thich Nhat Hanh. And I took her advice. Thank you very much, Brandy. I took her advice. She said, hey, Ann, listen to these books, download them. It'll help you get through these things. I was like, yeah, sure. All right, I'll download this book. Didn't even look at the cover until I popped my AirPods in and began to listen. And then I looked at the cover. Oh man, talk about irony. This book, No Mud, No Lotus by Thich Nhat Hanh, is called The Art of Transforming Suffering. And that, my sweet friend, is exactly what I was going through. I was suffering. And so I sat and still and I listened to this audiobook and I listened for hours. And then everything became silent. I had space to myself. And I wrote. And I wrote. And I wrote. Taking that moment to write was extremely liberating because I had actually been resisting the call to slow down, to rest, and to allow myself to simply be. And in that moment of suffering, that was exactly what I needed to let go of control. I needed to let go of the control that I was running the show and to stop pushing forward and just allow myself the space to be empty and see what came in. And let me tell you, friends, the downloads came in like a waterfall. And I just wrote. And that's what the gift of stillness can give you when you're suffering. It can give you clarity, it can give you a sense of direction. It allows you to be able to step back, get off the driver's seat, get into the passenger seat, and let the universe take care of you. That's what I want to talk about. That's part of what I want to talk about today. Because before I dive into these 4 steps, I want to talk about something that's really important, something that helped me make sense of all the suffering and hardships that we go through in our lives on earth, because each and every one of us have some kind of a soul contract around suffering, and it's different. Some people feel physical suffering through illnesses, conditions that they're born with, or maladies and disabilities. Some people are born with emotional suffering, where there's this sense of despondency, despair. They can never quite find that out of that dark place to feel good. Some people experience a soul contract with mental suffering, where they often can't get past that feeling of not thinking that they're good enough, they're unworthy, and they're plagued by fearful, anxious thoughts. And some people have a contract with spiritual suffering, where they feel the challenges that the world goes through. They empathize and they suffer with those who are oppressed, hurt. And I know that this word suffering can feel really heavy, but I want to tell you that suffering actually isn't random. It's part of our soul contract and it's part of our soul's evolution. We actually made a contract to transmute suffering before we even incarnated into this body. And that contract can include lessons, patterns, relationships, and even how we deal with ourselves that we're here to learn in this lifetime, because these lessons around suffering or transmuting suffering can often lead to healing, to growth, to releasing our fears and doubts and limiting beliefs about what's possible for our body. Our soul contract around suffering is to face the challenges that show up, and it pushes us to get out of our zone of comfort, because when you approach suffering with awareness, it's actually a very powerful invitation. And I want to share with you that suffering isn't about you being punished. Suffering isn't about you just having an unlucky deck or bad luck. When you make a contract with suffering, you're making an agreement for deep inner transformation, self love, and compassion. When you think of suffering as the catalyst that actually forces you to stop and question who you are, what you want, and where you're going, then you're going to realize that the gift in those answers is what actually gets you out of suffering. When these moments happen and we don't allow ourselves to evolve and pivot, it can continue the contract with suffering. And if we never allow ourselves to question why it's happening and what am I supposed to learn from this, then we'll never actually create a new trajectory or align to an even deeper purpose in our lives. And let me tell you, friend, that's going to waste your time. So when I came to this moment of stillness and I sat with the energy and the soul contract of suffering, I realized that Part of my contract with suffering was tied to my work as a warrior of light. That if I did not give myself that gift of time, presence, stillness, self love, and compassion, how was I going to share that with others in the world? I think it's so interesting that I'm starting this 12-week journey to talk about this concept of how to help. And I thought, I was standing there one day and I thought, wow, this is so ironic. I'm going to teach this idea, or we're going to talk about this idea of how to help. And I can't even move forward until I help myself. Now, I want to go back to suffering because I want to keep us on track with this information. I don't want to make it sound like suffering is something that we need to celebrate or chase or even welcome with open arms, because suffering isn't fun. And when it comes down to it, everyone on this planet will experience suffering at some point in their lives. And when that happens, the invitation is for you to ask yourself, what is this experience here to teach me? What lesson am I actually being invited to learn, rather than feeling like you don't have any way to take back the reins in your life? And when you approach suffering from a place of the learning lesson, it can transform it from being a burden and into a gift of personal and spiritual growth. So, I'm going to continue this discussion by talking about how you end suffering for yourself. But before we get to that, we got to actually talk about the four signs that life gives you when you are off track. One of those big wake up calls is physical symptoms are going to flare up. If your body starts to act up like mine did, well, that's the very big red flag for you. It's telling you that something is out of balance and out of alignment. And it may require you to sit down and shut up and listen. Your body knows when it's time to rest, but sometimes we ignore this because we have a plan we got to follow. The second thing that will give you a sense that life's throwing you a curveball is that you just feel emotionally out of control. You feel this overwhelm, and it doesn't seem like you'll ever catch up for that space. Your emotions feel very up and down. You get triggered very easily. And what it is an invitation to just step back and watch yourself and give yourself some space. When I felt like I was emotionally stretched and I could only people this much, I knew that I needed to take a break from having to be around so many people and rest. And in doing so, it allowed my emotions to recalibrate so I could at least come to a place of calmness and gratitude. Another sign that you'll feel like life has thrown you a curveball is when you feel like everything is just spinning out of control around you. This will give you the sense that I don't feel like I've got my anchor. I don't feel like I can calibrate myself. I just don't feel like I'm in the driver's seat. And it's actually okay for you to acknowledge that, because there are certain things that you'll need to gain a certain level of connection control over so that you can stop that spinning effect. And the last thing that gives you an insight that life has thrown you a curveball is you keep ignoring your intuition. Let me tell you how hard this last one was for me. My guides were literally screaming in my ear, you need to stop, you need to be still, you need to rest. And I didn't want to. I kept pushing. And so I paid that price of it. I find this so ironic because I just literally taught the Intuition Accelerator Boot Camp, and well, I didn't listen to my intuition. But when I realized that my body needed me to stop, that's when my intuition said, If you can trust me, I promise to get you through this. I'll let you know what you need. I'll let you know when it's time for you to rest, when it's time for you to eat. And because I had no choice, I let myself trust my intuition and started to make a difference. Now, we're pretty clear on what these four signs are, right? That when life throws you a curveball, your physical symptoms may act up, your emotions may feel all over the place, you might feel like things are spinning out of control. It's hard for you to listen to that voice inside. We could stop right here. We could call it a day. We've already talked about suffering. We've already talked about these four signs. You're probably pretty good, right? And while this is awesome, I'm going to tell you right now, it's not going to help you if you actually don't know how to pull yourself back from the edge when you're thrown a curveball. And I want you to know everyone is going to get that moment when you're at the edge. Everyone on this planet is going to go through some phases of suffering. Everyone is going to feel some moments where they don't feel like they're in control. So, I want to share this with you because these four simple steps when you're feeling on the edge will actually help you come back to yourself when you don't feel like you can. And the first thing you have to do is you've got to give yourself permission to stop. If you're looking outside of you for that external validation that it's okay for you to rest, you're actually depleting yourself with that vital energy to take care of yourself. This is a time where you may be asked to press the pause button and give yourself the gift to realign with yourself so that you're not missing out on anything. This is the reason why people don't want to stop. They have this fear of missing out, so they push themselves past the breaking point. And then when they have to stop, that's when they're like, oh man. But you know, friend, when you give yourself permission to stop, you're giving yourself permission to attend to you. And this is a personal inside job. You cannot hand this off to anyone else. Another suggestion to help you come back to yourself when you're feeling off is to actually pull back, reassess, and pivot. If suffering or symptoms happen to you, it's likely because it's giving you the opportunity to see life from a different perspective. That's what happened. When I got really still, I had a chance to sit and ask myself, am I really moving towards the direction that I want in my life? Am I simplifying what I'm doing, what I want, or am I just causing myself to be overly buried in work and never have freedom? So when you pull back, reassess, and pivot, it allows you to evaluate your priorities. It allows you to reevaluate your time, and it also reevaluates the energy that you're putting yourself towards. Now, this third one is easier said than done. One of the signs that you know that that life has thrown you a curveball is that you feel like things are out of control. You feel like your emotions and thoughts are out of control. But in order for you to actually stop the spiraling effect, you've actually got to get control of your thoughts and emotions. That means whatever it takes for you to feel grounded, whatever it takes for you to feel stable, like breathing, or just being in silence, when you give yourself the gift to calm your mind, the answers are always there waiting for you. Now, I gotta tell you, this last one, this might be a lot harder for some of you because some of you pride yourself on being in control. But sometimes that desire and need to be in control is actually what causes the challenges and the maladies. So the fourth way to bring yourself from being on the edge is to do whatever is necessary to surrender and trust in your path and commit to just taking one tiny, tiny action each day to pull yourself off the ledge. Surrendering isn't a weakness. It doesn't mean you're giving up. When you're surrendering, what you're allowing is releasing the illusion that somehow you're in control of everything. What I want you to know is, friend, you're not. And when you let the universe be in the driver's seat for you, this will actually help you relax, that you don't have to manage everything. You can trust that you're being taken care of. And that one tiny action that you do, whether you breathe, you say your prayers, you do some meditation, you move your body, these are all steps for you to start feeling anchored again. I know what it's like, my sweet friend, when you're on the edge and you're feeling like you're about to fall apart any moment. I've been there. And here's the thing I want to reinforce to you. When you're on the edge, you're not broken. You're rebuilding. And sometimes, in order to rebuild, you need to let go of the old structures, the old version, the old paradigms that are no longer serving you. To bring yourself back from that edge, you must first acknowledge that that's where you're even at. Stop pretending that you're okay. Stop pretending it's not happening to you, because, in all honesty, it is. So be honest with yourself. Feel it. Sit with it. Be with yourself. Because this is the most important gift you can give yourself. For me, it was really listening to my body, slowing down and being still long enough to hear what my soul needed. And in that moment of stillness, I found my anchor. So I want to share with you what this anchor is. Even though you may be suffering and undergoing some really hard tests in your life, one thing that will get you through is this statement: everything that happens works in my favor. I remember when I heard the statement, it was much earlier this week, and I was really feeling in the pits. I had just finished crying my eyes out to my husband, and I was feeling really puny. I jumped on a coaching call with my being in business coach, and he was just going through his little presentation, talking about this, talking about that. And when he uttered this phrase, let me tell you, it cut through all the noise in my head. And I felt like I was being spiritually shaken awake after being in this like whirlwind of a stupor. Everything that happens works in my favor. Everything that happens works in my favor. Everything that happens works in my favor. I know what you're thinking. I've heard that one before. What's so special about this? But does it really work in my favor? I don't know. It can, if you allow it. And because I was spiraled out so much, I needed this statement. And I allowed this statement to bring that anchor back to me. And it's okay for you to focus on you, because things can work out in your favor, especially when you give yourself the space to receive it. This is something that I had to sit with in this journey. Choosing myself is not selfish. Let me repeat that. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It's essential for your well-being, for your alignment, and for your ability to show up in the world. Choosing yourself is essential. I get it. We've been taught throughout our lives to put others first, help, to give, to be there for everyone. But here's the honest to God truth: when you're not choosing yourself, you're putting you're not putting your own needs first, how can you possibly show up for others? I thought this was so insightful as I look at this next campaign of how to help. And I realized, I was like, I can't actually help others if I can't help myself first. So I started to repeat the mantra: everything that happens works in my favor. Everything that happens works in my favor. Everything that happens works in my favor. And it started to happen. The healing started to happen. Our bodies are incredible healing machines. And I started to get a grip on life. I started to feel calmer. My thoughts felt more clear. And the messages that I downloaded, let me tell you, gave me not only a sense of direction and clarity, it gave me a sense of simplicity. And simplicity, that's the direction I want to head to, especially when life throws you a curveball. So I invite you, friend, wherever you are in this moment, if there is a part of you that is starting to see these symptoms that you're being thrown a curveball, don't wait until you get a full blown attack of hives. I really encourage you not to do that. Start anchoring yourself. Stop and give yourself a moment of self care and attention. Be still, be quiet. Rein in those emotions, rein in those thoughts. Repeat to yourself, everything that happens to me works in my favor. And that is the truth, even if you can't see it in the moment, because that everything that happens does work in your favor. So I invite you to take this message: everything that happens works in my favor. Sit with it, be with it, allow yourself to align to it. And as this happens, you'll find that you'll no longer be at the edge. You'll no longer feel that sense of overwhelm, that out of control, that disconnection. And next thing you know, the thing that you were suffering is now part of your past. So I hope that this message resonates for you. I am sending you so much love, light, healing, blessing, positive abundance. Take really good care of yourself, friends, and I will see you soon. Bless up.